This is true wilderness survival.
They cried when they finally ate meat, knowing how tough it was to get.
It's day 21 and 3 contestants remain.
Lars, the sea guy, spent last night camping in the wild. He woke up to a frozen sleeping bag. Sunny, shivering from the cold, still went out to make popsicles. But seeing the aurora last night made it all worth it.
With the river frozen over and the biting cold, how could she sleep outside? Sunny was up early again, acting all wild.
She was excited to see some sunshine today. Sunny went to the shore to check her fishing nets, hoping to catch some fish.
The one having the best time right now is Ashley.
Ashley doesn't have to worry about food or water, and her shelter is top-notch.
Considering how she felt on day 1,
she has now completely adapted to this place. Although the journey has been tough through her own efforts, she built a shelter in the wilderness and can now live here permanently.
Her confidence is through the roof.
She'll have no trouble snagging a husband with these skills when she returns.
Meanwhile, Lars got up and started heading back.
Others come to the wilderness to survive. He's here on vacation. Lars went to the shore and saw a fish teasing him in the water. He pulled the fishing line.
Turns out he caught a fish.
This fish was quite big and almost got away.
Lars picked up the fish and gave it a few punches.
The fish wasn't huge, but its meat was tender and tasty.
Who knew this little pond had fish? Sunny had a great catch too, whacking fish with a stick. She was really going for it and ended up with quite a haul. Could this be a comeback?
She fried a big pot of fish by the shore.
Today's meal is bound to be a feast. Before eating, she deboned and minced the fish.
Meanwhile, Lars still had half his fishing line in the water.
He decided to wade in and get it.
Isn't he worried about freezing to death? With his shoes still on, he stepped into the water to untangle the line. Fortunately, the water was shallow enough. As long as he kept his clothes dry, it was doable. He retrieved the fishing line but didn't catch any fish.
This was a bit of a loss.
His shoes were completely soaked. The shelter was quite far away, and walking such a long distance in wet shoes would likely be quite uncomfortable. Ashley heads to the shore, already singing as she checks the net. Today's catch is small, but still better than Sunny's.
Sunny has had a full meal, while Lars is still struggling for food. Ashley remains consistent, and if she doesn't lose her mind wanting to get married, she might just make it to the end. Ashley is the front runner.
With the weather getting colder, unless she slips up, she'll stay in the game.
Lars manages to catch a fish every day. It's not great, but it's enough to survive.
He keeps trying to fish with a line instead of using the perfectly good net he has.
Ashley can catch several fish with one net. Can you even catch 2 with your line? He packs up and heads back to the shelter. Ashley sits by the shore and starts crying. What's happening?
There's meat in the pot, but she's crying here.
What's the deal?
I was ready to declare you the winner, but now you're losing your focus in the final stretch.
These contestants are impressive.
Stay positive. What's there to worry about?
If you keep crying like this,
you'll sob your way out of winning. I'll cry my eyes out the day I go home because I'll always remember this place.
Because I love this feeling in the moment. I don't look too good at all.
Sunny, now full, gets to work.
It's a relief not to stress about food.
He sits and carves a walking stick. His mindset has improved a lot.
Is he going to make a comeback and win? Lars is still hiking around.
I have no idea what he's doing. He sees some grass on the ground and picks some to eat. The scenery is beautiful, but don't forget you're here to survive in the wild. In no time, the old lady is perched on a rock singing, while Ashley mopes in the shelter.
From my experience, Ashley's chances of winning are slim. If the old lady wins, it'll be hilarious. It's now the 22nd day.
Lars wakes up to find the ground freezing. The weather's colder, making fishing tougher.
He checks the net by the shore. A net spanning hundreds of square feet caught only one fish. Lars is having the hardest time.
His daily food barely sustains him. Today, he caught 2 fish, not enough to fill him up, but enough to stave off starvation.
Sunny checked his nets at the shore too.
He only got 2 fish and wasn't too happy about it.
At least he won't go hungry. Having some fish is a win. He even swore at me on camera. Darn it, I'll jinx you so you never win. Granny's always cooking up wild dishes, using local ingredients and experimenting.
Granny's got a great shot at winning thanks to her optimism and daily food hunts.
Meanwhile, Ashley decided to go hiking today. Is she crazy? It's the last round and she's still burning energy fishing daily. Why not just play it safe and go for the prize money?
He has already come to the top of the mountain, and this time it feels good to have a look at the mountains at the top of the spiritual cave, and he is not here to pull off.
It's a pity.
He stacked the stones. If it were me, I'd make a fish trap with them.
Since that girl cried, she's been acting weird and losing her edge.
Meanwhile, Sunny's getting her act together. He started exploring the area, but all the wood around is bare.
Are these contestants out of their minds? Why is everyone hiking instead of fixing their shelters? They're just aimlessly wandering. If someone could build a decent wooden shelter, he's sure to win. Meanwhile, Lars is facing massive waves.
Fishing in this stormy weather just got harder.
Lars is battling the waves, trying to retrieve his net from the shore, but it's snagged on some rocks. What now? No net means no food.
Lars tried everything to retrieve his net, but his odds of winning are dwindling.
Meanwhile, Sunny lounges on a rock, tossing out snarky remarks.
After finally getting 2 decent meals, he now chooses to waste his energy.
But hey, it's better than Ashley sulking in her shelter.
It's day 23, and this morning felt much colder.
Ashley gets more excited as the challenges increase. For the cold-averse grandma, it's getting tough.
The worse the weather, the bigger the test for the shelters. Lars woke up to find his shelter completely gone.
This is hilarious.
These contestants are so bad at building shelters. He's out there fixing his shelter in a storm.
Why didn't he do it when the weather was good? Now he's scrambling. These contestants are incredibly lazy. Lars is definitely struggling the most. He's lost his shelter completely.
Sunny heads to the shore to check the fishing nets.
The waves are massive.
He spots the nets in the water from the shore. But there were no fish.
Another day without a catch?
Lars looked at his shelter and felt like he was back to square one. He headed to the shore to check the net, hoping to catch some fish to eat before tackling the shelter. Lars stood there, pulling in the net. But the net was empty and tangled from the wind. He had to fix it first.
No food yet,
but he still needed to work on the shelter.
Otherwise, he wouldn't make it through the night.
Ashley checked his net. The catch was small, but at least he had some fish.
Ashley's shelter was now the best.
He hung the net on the shelter, and there were still a few fish in it. Lars was finally ready to build his shelter.
I've never seen contestants start this late in the game.
He decided to build a cone-shaped shelter, but this one was bigger and anchored to the trees.
Why build it so high? The wind resistance would be huge.
After constructing the frame with wood, he started fixing the net. It was a tangled mess and would take hours to sort out,
but it was the easiest way to catch fish. If he couldn't eat, he'd be in trouble.
The wind was strong today, and as he fixed the net,
it kept getting blown away.
Ashley, inside his shelter, felt the strong wind outside. He was also preparing to improve his shelter.
Sunny also started working.
She pressed branches around her shelter to prevent it from being blown away at night.
This last-minute effort was quite effective.
They quickly improved their shelters. Lars was ready to nail his shelter down. He had collected many nails from the wooden boards. In a day, he had rebuilt his shelter.
Though it was windproof, it wasn't warm.
He might struggle to sleep because of the wind, but it beat being outside.
Ashley was cooking fish in his shelter.
Feeling full made him much warmer. Hiding in the shelter, listening to the fierce wind outside, he felt excited.
Sunny wasn't afraid of the wind anymore.
These two women had a high chance of winning, while Lars had a tough time. If Lars didn't catch a big fish, he was in trouble. Sunny headed to the shore to set her net and began fishing once the wind died down.
Lars showed up at the shore too. Did he honestly believe that old net would work? What surprises await us in the next episode? Stay tuned. Stay tuned for the next update. What is real wilderness survival like? After 27 days of hunger, he finally has a huge catch. This fish feels like $1 million.
On day 24, 3 contestants remained.
The wind was fierce.
Sunny headed to the shore early to check the fishing net amid the huge waves.
Sunny pulled up the fishing net from the water. The wind was so strong that the net was flapping around. You can tell at a glance if there are any fish. With such big waves, spending time fixing the net is just awful today.
Ashley heads to the shore daily to gather firewood, a routine task for him.
The wind is really strong outside. One wrong move and the stakes blow away.
The wind and waves tangled the fishing net, taking ages to fix.
Luckily, I managed to catch a fish. It's really tough to catch fish in this weather. Lars is having the hardest time right now.
His shelter was blown down yesterday, and although he has rebuilt it, he still can't catch any fish. If this keeps up, he likely won't make it unless he catches a big fish soon.
Grandma Sunny is out gathering wood.
There are lots of small branches for burning, but she insists on sawing a big log. The wind is really strong, and though Grandma fears the cold, she stays out in it. He tires out before even splitting one log.
No need to feel sorry for him.
There are plenty of safer small branches nearby.
Heading into the wilderness without thinking is a mistake.
They could have avoided some pitfalls with better planning. Lars, meanwhile, is still concerned about food. He grabs a bottle he uses as a nighttime urinal and plans to turn it into a fishing device. He also used a piece of metal to make a fishing lure.
Although he hadn't caught many fish, he kept trying to catch more. Astley has almost finished organizing his fishing net.
This net has brought him a lot of fish, and now he relies entirely on it for food. Despite the tough conditions, he caught a fish today, which lifted his spirits. One fish isn't much, but it will sustain him for another day.
Yet, he consistently outlasted the others by a day.
Astley, on the other hand, caught the most fish due to her prime location. The fast-flowing water had more fish, and catching so many there gave Astley a great sense of accomplishment. The shelter is well constructed. Lars is starving and must find food soon, or he won't last much longer. The rough waves make it hard for him to use a fishing net, so he grabs his homemade gear and heads to the shore. He attempts to fish for food. In good weather, he hikes, but with the current bad weather, he sticks to fishing. They're not starving yet, but they have no idea how to find food. He crafted a wooden hoe to dig up worms for bait. He only caught a fish once, showing just how bad Lars's luck is. Hopefully, he lands a big one soon. With waves like these, even the camera can't bear to watch.
Sunny returned to the shelter. This old lady isn't too bright.
She has always cooked outside, but with the wind so strong, she had no choice but to go back to the shelter. Life's tough for her as well. She spent hours trying to light a fire but failed.
Frustrated, she yelled again.
Astley shared the shelter, and the difference was clear. The old lady struggled to start a fire, while Astley did it effortlessly.
As things stand, Astley is doing the best. They will have some sat-ans.
Sunny is just behind Astley, while Lars is still out fishing. It's freezing, and he's standing out there, not catching anything.
She's about to give up too.
Rather than freeze out here, she might as well go back and sleep.
Lars' shelter is just a tent, and the wind is fierce. Hiding inside was super loud. Sunny got a fire going, making it much warmer.
But the smoke inside the shelter was unbearable, making it feel like you'd be smoked like jerky overnight.
Poor Sunny couldn't stop rubbing his eyes.
But it was still better than Lars' predicament. Meanwhile, Astley was thriving. She was clearly a strong candidate for the championship. Her shelter is the sturdiest, and she's been eating well every day. As long as she stays focused and doesn't get distracted by thoughts of marriage, she's bound to win. Sunny has begun dinner, savoring the fish with her hands.
Afterward, she grabs a wheel. This wheel can be made into a tool to pull in the fishing net, which often gets stuck. He took it to the shore to fix the net. Grandma is super eager to catch fish.
If she keeps it up, she might give Astley a run for her money in the championship. Lars is resting in the shelter. The wind is fierce, and there's a small vent in the roof. Thankfully, it's not raining now, but if it starts. At night, sleep was scarce.
Grandma came back to the shelter, always watching the weather.
No one knew how long the wind would keep up. She uses a stick to count the days. Everyone is huddled in their shelters. In this weather, I believe the contestants are beginning to show signs of. I predict someone will soon drop out.
It's tough to guess who will be the first to leave. In many seasons of Alone, the top performer doesn't always win.
Grandma is currently in the middle of the pack, but she has a good chance of winning. Lars is also doing well, but she hasn't caught any fish.
If she can catch fish, that's another story. Right now, Astley is doing the best.
This girl just wants to marry an old man. If she can't shake that and leaves to get married, she'll lose the $1 million prize. She's crying again, tormented by the loneliness and cold. Even the biggest fire can't warm her heart.
Meanwhile, Grandma.
When she's bored, she can entertain herself. You can tell from the toys she makes. Despite her age, she's always been into wooden toys. They've been cooped up in the shelter all day and are really bored.
My sister thinks it's dull too. It's the 25th day now.
This morning, Astley was singing.
She was crying her heart out yesterday, and now she's in such a good mood? That can't be a good sign.
After drinking water, she seemed like a new person.
Grandma's not doing well.
He's unsure how much longer he can last here. He has no idea how the others are faring.
This waiting game is the worst kind of torture. Suddenly, the show's boat appeared. Which contestant is going to quit? Lars hasn't caught any fish.
But he's in very good condition. He strolls outside the shelter after waking up.
Any contestant could quit at this point.
Astley, in red stockings and looking unusually sexy, is getting ready for breakfast.
He's the only one with fish left to eat.
He's unlikely to quit. If he were, he'd skip breakfast and head home for a feast instead.
Grandma Sunny is babbling in the shelter and starts crying. If you want to cry, do it at home. This show is for tough folks. Sunny feels it's very difficult. He wants the show to give him $1 million to go home. But what surprised me was that Astley was the first to quit. He stood by the shore, watching the show's boat come, saying he felt very lonely and isolated here. This is Alone, where the goal is to test contestants' ability to endure loneliness. Astley just couldn't handle it. No matter how well he was doing, he wouldn't win.
His withdrawal surprised me. Everyone said he would win if he didn't go crazy wanting to get married. He was sure to win the championship.
His exit essentially gave Sunny and Lars a clear shot. Lars went to check the fishing net.
Of the three, Lars struggled the most. He tugged at the fishing net, which seemed stuck again. Granny Sunny joined the wilderness too, but her shoulder pain was unbearable.
This can't continue. The top contestant already left, and the second was struggling with health. Why didn't you mention it sooner?
Lars tugged the fishing net hard.
If it keeps coming up empty, she won't last long here either.
But luckily, today the net caught a small fish, giving Lars another day of survival. At this point, Granny was really down. She lost interest in staying and started crying again while talking. She had already cried countless times today. Then, the show's boat showed up again.
Granny decided to quit. Oh my god. Sunny and Ashley seem to be doing fine.
Why did they break down so suddenly?
Is Lars just going to win by default now?
The top performer didn't clinch the title. The one who struggled the most did.
By the 26th day, Lars went exploring. Lars went out exploring, and the day flew by.
The show brought in Lars' family, who were thrilled about the big prize.
Lars rose early and headed to the shore, hoping to find fish in the net.
To his surprise,
today's catch was huge, including a big fish. What does it mean to catch so many fish on the last day?
But before he could eat, the show crew arrived. Lars feared he'd be forced to quit due to his starvation. He was anxious, but then came a surprise. Lars won the championship and received $1 million prize. Once again, a season where strong contestants lost to a lucky one.
That's a wrap for this season.
Like and follow for more wilderness survival content.